Do you actually have to be on cocaine to be on this podcast?
It's a great day to be a Wildcat!
Cocaine.
Durfing.
What's up, everybody? You're listening to yet another edition, a special edition of Cocaine Willie. I am your commissioner, Bob Trollsby, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, the good chef, Andre Napier, and Fireball Matt Marchesini. And tonight, we are previewing the first ever matchup between the NC State Wolfpack and the Kansas State Wildcats in football in the Pop-Tarts Bowl on December 28th, 2023. To help us dig into the weeds on all things NC State, we have Evan from the Red White Podcast joining us. Evan, how are you doing today, my man?
I'm doing fantastic, guys. I appreciate y'all having me.
Of course. Well, to kick things off, let's dive into NC State and the season that you had. Coming off of a 9-3 record overall in the regular season, 6-2 record in the ACC, finishing third in ACC play behind Louisville and Florida State. And we can get into the Florida State snub if we want to, by all means, but finishing 18th in the CFP rankings, 18th in the coaches poll, and 19th in the AP poll. I guess just to talk a little bit more for some of the folks who are listening who maybe aren't aware of some of the key victories that NC State had and key losses that NC State had, rounded out the season with wins against North Carolina in a rivalry game there, Clemson, Miami, and Virginia Tech. They didn't play Florida State, although I would have loved to see a matchup between this team and Florida State. And then losses came at the hands of number 10 at the time, Notre Dame, 45-24, and unranked at the time, which was interesting because they start off not really getting as many eyeballs, I think, but unranked at the time, Louisville, a 13-10 loss, and then a number 17 Duke team at the time beat them 24-3. So I guess just to throw it to you, Evan, how are NC State fans feeling about this season?
Man, the season was a roller coaster. And I know probably every fan base says that, but I genuinely mean it. They started out, there was so much optimism, new offensive coordinator, brought in his old quarterback who was super productive at another school. And you're like, yeah, we're going to do some things. And then you come in, you're like, what the hell was that the first game? And you just don't know. And then it took like 5 games. It was a grind. And then, that Duke game, for example, like if you go by Duke had 3 plays. They scored on all 3 of them and they won. Like legit, it was 90% of their offense was 3 plays. It was so frustrating. You look at the win projections, and we should have not lost that game. I don't understand how that happened. And it was that kind of season. And the Louisville game prior to that, I mean, those are the 2 games you look at, you're like, damn, it's ridiculous. Like you should have beat Louisville, I don't know what we were doing on offense, but the team we saw in the first half of the year and the team we saw in the second half of the year, completely different. And it was all over the place. And we finished on an extremely high note, and it was one of the more fun and productive seasons that I've ever seen in the back half from an NC State team. And that's why there's a lot of optimism right now, but there's still a lot of like what could have been. Because if you played that first half of the season like you played the last half of the season, this team's really good. This team had a chance to be, getting snubbed like Florida State did. I mean, they were that good, and it's mind-blowing. Yeah, roller coaster.
I'm hearing a lot of parallels to K-State season as well, because you mentioned the game against Louisville, or the game against Duke was the one where you said that they scored on 3 plays. That's the Iowa State game for us, where they had six plays basically, and they didn't even make it past onto their side of the field, really, and scored on almost every single one of those plays. And so we have a lot of parallels there. I guess I'm curious, from an NC State fan's perspective, how do you feel about this being the first ever matchup between K-State, and what kind of thoughts or feelings does a matchup against K-State bring up for you?
It's interesting, man. It's a lot of parallels to the schools. There have always admired Kleiman and what he did, at North Dakota State or North Dakota, whatever, mixed them up. But hell of a coach, and what Kansas State has become over the last, 5-10 years. I mean, they were Snyder had them in his good program, right? And they were always, you guys were always pretty consistent, but it just feels like you're a little bit better now, right? And Dave Doeren, for me, has felt like this very similar, where we've been pretty consistent, but the last 4 or 5 years they've been better. They've been consistently better. So I think there's a lot of parallels there. So it's an interesting matchup. Unfortunately, I was hoping to play a chump and get our 10th win pretty easily, but we actually have to play a real program with a real coach who knows what he's doing. And, I think the parallels are all over the place in this game.
Well, let's talk about Dave Doeren for a little bit. So 11th season at the school, which I feel like I remember when he got hired. So it's crazy. It's been 11 seasons, but 81 and 57 overall. For any of the Cocaine Willie listeners out there, he's a Kansas guy. Shawnee Mission, or he went to Bishop Miege, but he's from Shawnee, Kansas. He was a Brett Bielema assistant at Wisconsin, and a Mangino assistant at KU. But a big thing with him, he's won 7 games every year at NC State, aside from 2 seasons, 2013 and 2019. But he has not hit the hump, I guess, of winning 10 games. So overall, how do you feel about your head coach and the state of the program right now? I mean, are you feeling all right? And what do you think this program's ceiling is with him as head coach?
That's a very good question. I'll put it this way. When Dave started, people were excited, and I'll give him a pass for the 2013 season that Tom O'Brien left with no talent on the roster, and he had no idea what he was walking into. So granted, I give him that. Every time, like when the Kansas State job last opened, a lot of State fans like, maybe Dave will take the Kansas State job, right? He got us to that point where you're like, all right, the foundation is better, but I don't know if we're ever going to get there. Maybe he'll go take one of those Midwest jobs where he's from. And, that's everybody's hoping that would happen. And it didn't. And to Dave's credit, he's evolved. He evolved from the defensive side of the ball when we were under Dave Huxtable. Sorry, I said John. Dave Huxtable running a very bend but don't break defense. And he completely flipped that philosophy when he went out and got Tony Gibson to be ultra aggressive, right? The offensive side of the ball it's taken 11 years, but he's finally gotten to that point, right? He brought in, we went through different offensive coordinators. Drink, who's now at Mizzou, was our offensive coordinator beforehand. And he finally brings in Robert and I, and Dave said, hey, we need to be different. This was the first year he has ever came out and said that. And that's what makes the first 5 games such an anomaly, because we weren't different with the same dumb stuff we were doing before. All of a sudden, now we start to be different. Now we start to scheme open guys. We're starting to get the ball to the players who can make plays. And you're like, damn, why don't we do that the whole time? Dave's starting to evolve. And now on the recruiting trail, he is being more, I won't say aggressive, but he knows the importance of recruiting now. He got one guy who has been able to make such a difference in Kevin Concepcion. And now we're doing great in the portal, right? And we're recruiting. We got Jonathan Paler, who's a extremely high-rated running back, athlete, slot guy, whatever you want to call him in our area. Guys that have typically slid to Clemson or South Carolina or Tennessee before. He's really has increased his emphasis on recruiting and not just developing players. And so it's been this weird evolution. It's been Dave's okay. He's doing a good job. He's clearly raised the foundation of this program. Now, I know we haven't gotten over the hump and won a championship. And that's still, I don't want to say it's okay, but it's not okay. Everybody still wants to win, right? But given that we're historically a 500 program, what Dave has done, and especially in the last 5 years, has been phenomenal. And you cannot discount, just can't discount it, right? I mean, he's been and had a couple tough breaks playing behind Clemson every year, right? I mean, if you would have broken out the divisions long before they did now, right, and combined the ACC into one division, State would have been in the ACC championship game against Clemson multiple years. But they've been in the same division. You just can't get over that hump. Meanwhile, you're in the Coastal Division, and Duke's winning, and Carolina's going, and Georgia Tech's going. You're like, what in the hell, man? So it's frustrating to a point, but he's definitely raised the foundation of the program. And I think most State fans can and will agree that he's gotten better. And I think the evolution of Dave Doeren as a better coach has really been apparent. And that's also why I think he's being mentioned with more jobs. Like the Michigan State job came open and he started getting his name out there. You know, the people are starting to pay attention to him because he's just been consistently good. Now, it hasn't been great, but he's been consistently good and really good, which is for us, that's a big step forward as a program. And so, you know, all credit to Dave. He's evolved as a coach, and I think I'm excited to see if this keeps going.
That brings up a really, I guess, a good follow-up. I mean, he's been with the school for 11 seasons, which if you look across the landscape of college football, that's a very rare thing that we're seeing. And so if he hits a 10-win season or, even better than that, I mean, is he a guy that you think would be looking at other jobs, or do you see him at NC State for the rest of his coaching career or close to it?
Honestly, like going into this season and even halfway through the season, it felt like Dave was one of those guys that was going to hang it up early, right? You've seen other coaches, Bronco Mendenhall, some other guys who have Chris Peterson, who have like, man, I just don't like the way this is going. I don't like the NIL stuff. I don't like the transfer portal. It's just become less about coaching football. Dave's a football guy. He's a football coach, and that's what he wants to do. So all season, you know, we're talking about on our pod, like, man, it sure feels like he's done. He's going to hang it up early. And then he gets the all-time wins record at NC State, and you're like, and he's crying and he's talking like he's done, and they just keep winning. And you're like, I think he's got a little bit of renewed life into him. He lands a couple highly regarded recruits, and you're like, I feel like Dave. He's after the Carolina game, he's on TV saying, you know, donate to our NIL, you know, come play here. We're, you know, this is it. And like, he's never done that kind of stuff before. He's always been like a very, you know, down to earth, behind the scenes guy. So when we thought he was, you know, on his tail end, but it seems like he's got a new head of steam, which is wild. You know, just didn't see it coming. I don't think he's ever going anywhere. If he ever goes anywhere, he's going to go to Lake Gaston, to his lake house, and retire and go fishing. He loves the area. Like, and I know a lot of coaches say that, but he genuinely means it. And I know a lot of people who are connected to him will say, you know, he means that when he says that. His family's here, his kids in school here. You know, I know he's flirted with Tennessee before. I know he's flirted with Mississippi State before. Michigan State called him. You know, he didn't have any interest, and they pay a lot better than we do. So I got a feeling he's got a really good thing going, and he's not one that's looking to rebuild the program, but rebuild his relationships, rebuild his recruiting relationships, rebuild the alumni relationships. So I think Dave's done. He's done here, and he's going to be it's on his own terms at this point.
Well, that's a great rundown of Dave Doeren, but he's been at NC State 11 years. Brennan Armstrong's been playing quarterback for 11 years in college football. He's
True.
At Virginia. That's where I remember him as I forgot he even went to NC State, but all-time everything at Virginia, a lefty, a solid lefty. I like that a lot. You know, this season, I don't know necessarily what happened with him, but the statistics just weren't there. And I think there might have been a little bit of quarter controversy midway through the season, but this is the guy that's rolling into this bowl game that Kansas State's going to see. So what are we going to expect from Armstrong? Is he all the way in there? Is everything going smoothly with the offense running through this quarterback?
Yeah, good question. And it's been an interesting year from the quarterback position. You know, and I said it earlier, like he came in and everybody's like cautiously optimistic, right? Because he didn't do great at Virginia, but it was also under Des Kitchings, who was also one of our offensive coordinators. So we know what kind of effect he can have on an offense, not in a good way, right? And then you reunite him with Robert and I, where he threw 10,000 yards and he broke every record, and it was just, you know, video game numbers at UVA that year in 2020, I believe it was. So, you know, that was the optimism coming into the season. And then it almost felt like he was pressing, right? He was trying too hard, and maybe they were asking him to do too much. But when they benched him and they brought in MJ Morris, they simplified the offense. And MJ gets a lot of credit for what happened. Okay. For right or wrong, I don't know. But he gets a lot of credit for that. But they didn't ask MJ to do half the things they asked Brennan Armstrong to do. They kept it very simple, single reads. They just very predefined actions. And when MJ decided to bench himself, I don't know, roller coaster, Brendan Armstrong came in and they kept that going. And I think a combination of him being benched and kind of gut punched, so to speak, to like take a minute and like, all right, I know what I'm doing. I should be doing the right thing. And then they simplified the offense. Hey, look, we got guys that can make plays. Let's let Brennan help him make plays and not ask Brennan to, take a 5-step drop and read three different safeties and whatever. It's a much more simplified version of it. And you could tell at the end of the year, they were rolling. And that Carolina game was the epitome of that offense. It peaked at the end of the year in that game. If Brendan Armstrong's playing with nearly cracked ribs, and you could tell in that game, we knew this going into it. And the announcers during the game were like, he slid? He doesn't usually slide, or he looks like he's a little coming up, soft. He was hurt. He was like, and we don't have a backup. Our backup's in the portal or redshirting. The next backup is a true freshman who's like 5'5", and he had a shoulder surgery, so he's hurt. So he's barely been throwing. We would have had to play to walk on. Brendan Armstrong, all credit to that kid, man. He toughed it out. And you could tell he was hurt because he wasn't running with his head down. He was sliding, and that's what he never does, right? He's trying to bull you over normally. But they settled down, and we would have hung 50 on Carolina if he was healthy. But he played in control that game. They didn't ask him to run too much because he was hurt. He made simple throws. He made good decisions. I mean, he was a completely different guy than the same guy that early in the year in that Louisville game who threw a jump ball at the end of the game. You're like, what the hell? It's completely different. He turned himself around. And I think it was more of a, I came in, I'm pressing, and now I can settle down. I already got benched. There's nobody behind me to bench me again. So he was playing a little bit more loose. I don't know what happened, but it was a complete 180 from the first half to the second half season. And right now, the offense is just, it's the first time, and I don't, there's no hyperbole. I mean, it's for real. It's the first time in 6 years that I can recall an offense at NC State that we're like, I'm excited about this. This is fun. This is fun to watch.
And so,
go ahead.
If this is your first year under this offensive coordinator, right?
Correct. Yeah.
So, what's the ideal quarterback situation? I mean, like, who is the prototype for this offense? Is it a guy like Brendan Armstrong? Is a guy more like MJ Morris
or Grayson McCall?
Yes.
Or Phillip Rivers.
My man. No, well, Phillip Rivers is the greatest ACC quarterback to ever live. So we'll put that out there now. He did light up Kansas for y'all, so you can thank him for that one. But the prototypical quarterback, Dave wants a tough guy, right? In Northern Illinois, he had Jordan Lynch, who was the linebacker playing quarterback. Brendan Armstrong was very similar to that early on. He wants a run. He wants a running quarterback or a guy that can move and put that pressure on you with his legs. Anai is very much the same thing with Garrett Schrader, Brendan Armstrong. He made those guys more dynamic. I think they are more of the type that they like than MJ. And no disrespect to MJ. He was okay. He needs a lot of help. He needs a lot of growing to do. But he's not the tough runner or the tough quarterback that Dave likes. Dave wants a football guy, right? And what they do, they went on and got Grayson McCall, he's Brendan Armstrong, but with more control, right? And more, discipline. I'm so excited about the Grayson Armstrong. I've been watching Grayson McCall, for years at Coastal Carolina. And to get him here, man, I'm fired up. But those kind of guys who are, they don't have the Devin Leary arm. They don't have the guys going to throw it 70 yards. They're not going to ask him to do that. All right, we're bringing in better skill position now. Again, the evolution of Dave Doeren. Hey, I need more skill talent. I don't need just tall guys that can throw jump balls too. So they're bringing in these guys that can run a little bit, but they're going to make good decisions. Grayson McCall, running the modified option at Coastal Carolina, made a lot of good decisions. He was put in a lot of tough places. There's a lot of similarities to Robert and I's offense than what they're going to ask McCall to do, and also what they're asking Brennan Armstrong to do. So those kind of guys are who I'm looking for. It's not going to be the pro style offense that NC State has developed with, Phillip Rivers, Russell Wilson, Mike Glenn, and Ryan Finley over the last, decade or two, where we've, had a ton of quarterbacks hit the pros. Like I don't expect us to have those kind of guys anymore. I think they've kind of figured out what they need. They need a signal caller, a guy that can just do the right things and not have to win the game for you.
So in thinking about the broader offense, when we think about not just the quarterback position, and you've got the new offensive coordinator, right? It almost sounds like a tale of two seasons, to put it the way that you did early in the podcast. When you look at the offensive efficiency metrics, that I would imagine a lot of that's being weighed down by maybe the first half of the season. Because when you look at CFBgraphs.com, which is our friend Parker Fleming's stats of war, 111th overall in offensive efficiency, and that's 113th against the rush and 98th against the pass. That's probably being weighed down by that first half of the season. But it is interesting. You mentioned Kevin Concepcion earlier in the podcast as well. He seems like the kind of guy that we absolutely, as K-State fans, want to have bottled up, because he led the team in all-purpose yards with 1,064. And he's the second leading rusher on the team as a wide receiver, which was fascinating to me. The number one was Brennan Armstrong.
He's the best wide receiver and the best running back on the team. And, that says a lot about him. It also says a lot about where our roster was at this point, right?
And you have 5 guys with more than 250 yards rushing, which is I don't know what that says about depth. That says that you've got a lot of dudes who can do some damage on the ground. But I guess just scheme wise and name wise, who are some of the guys that we should be looking out for? And thinking about K-State's defense, how do you think they're going to scheme up this matchup and try to find ways to win against this K-State defense?
Yeah. So Concepcion is the offense right now. He's not only the best running back and wide receiver. At one point, he was running Wildcat. He was our best quarterback too. He's unbelievable. And he's a true freshman. And we heard about this in the spring. Like, hey, this kid's pretty good, but not like this. Light bulb came on for him, and he's unbelievable. So, if I'm not mistaken, you guys are down 2 defensive back in the portal or graduated, right?
Yep.
So good luck putting who's going to chase Kevin Concepcion around like that. They're going to get this kid the ball a lot in a lot of different ways. They're going to, pop pass him. They're going to slant him. They're going to wildcat him. They're going to use him all over the place. He's the guy that you're going to have to know. From our running back situation, Michael Allen's 4-star running back. He's in the portal. We turned Jordan Poole, a linebacker, into a running back halfway through the season. Delbert Mims is our short yardage back, who he's not gonna run by you, but he might run you over, and they only use him in short yardage situations anyway. Kendrick Raphael is a freshman who started to get a little bit better as the year went on. Really hit his stride in the Miami game when the guy tried to tackle him with his head and missed, and he just kept running. It was a really weird play. Wide receiver position, I'm trying to think who's not in the portal at this point. Keon Lassane is the guy they kind of fall back to, who he's reliable, to say, probably a good way to describe him. Julian Gray is a guy that he is a next level athlete, but the light bulb hadn't come on for him like it has for Concepcion. If they work him into, they'll use him on sweeps and pitch outs and things like that. And he's our kick return guy, and he's a dynamic athlete. And then Dakari Collins, he's been pretty good. He's a transfer from Clemson. We've spread the ball around a lot outside of Concepcion. So there's really not one guy who's going to stand out. I mean, outside of Concepcion, I'm trying to think who we're going to look for. He's the one you got to watch. I don't even know at this point. Like, it's crazy. I'm thinking about the Carolina game, and it was Armstrong and Concepcion, and they worked in Lassane a little bit. They worked in Julian Gray was hurt. They worked in Rosner, the Rice transfer, who's in his 7th year too. He's about as old as Armstrong.
How's
Yeah,
your tight end room? How's the tight end room?
So a lot of NC State podcasts will talk about Trent Penix, who some have dubbed the secret weapon because he's, I don't know, it's a ridiculous name. He has never lived up to that billing, but he's fast and he's a tough matchup, but he's not a true tight end. He sits in our Z spot, I think, or flexi spot. I forgot what they called it. He's a tough matchup because he's really fast and he's kind of big. True tight ends, Juice Farine, but he's a true freshman. Flashed really early, but then kind of hit a freshman wall. You know, they're not going to utilize the tight end right now very much. Our highest rated tight end was Reed Mitchell, who's a walk-on. And even then, he was our lowest rated PFF player on offense. So just not a position of, yeah, you're right. Yeah, I see you laughing down there. Like it's not a position of value right now. We have 4 or 5 tight ends in the portal too. So not going to see a lot of tight end action there.
So
it's going to be Concepcion and then a bunch of other guys contributing.
So I'm curious with Concepcion, like what happened in that Wake Forest game and the Louisville game? Because those are the 2 games where he had a season low. I think 7 yards receiving against Louisville and 19 against Wake Forest.
Yeah, Louisville game was the aberration, right? I give Louisville a little credit. Their defense was disruptive, and they had been all year. But our offense did not hit its stride at all. It was the end of that first half run where you're like, you just didn't know what that was. And they didn't know how to get KC the ball. And then all of a sudden they figured out how to get him the ball. In the Wake Forest game, he got dinged up a couple times, but they didn't need him because we were absolutely pounding the crap out of Wake Forest. Wake Forest could not stop us. And again, like, you know, I sound crazy, but it's just not one of those things that we do often. It's yet Wake Forest game in Winston-Salem has been a nightmare for NC State. And we went down there and absolutely just trucked them and didn't need to abuse KC like we had been, so that's where that is. I think in that Wake game, Armstrong nearly had 100 yards rushing. I think they used Delbert Mims goal line a lot. Wake's offense was atrocious and they couldn't do it. We scored. Peyton Wilson scored on a pick 6, I believe. Like Wake couldn't do anything. So they just were not going to force feed KC, who I think he got a shoulder stinger or something in that game.
Let's talk a little bit about the defense. In many ways, the defense has been pretty great this season. Overall, they were 18th in defensive efficiency, 26th against the rush, and 15th against the pass this season. So, K-State fans, this will be the best defense that we've faced this year, other than Troy and Texas. Troy was 10th and Texas was 13th in defensive efficiency. K-State 29th on this list. One of the big reasons your defense was so good is Peyton Wilson. He won the Chuck Bednarik Award, Dick Butkus Award. He was a unanimous All-American. I mean, incredible linebacker. We've heard potentially, hasn't been confirmed that he's opted out. Not sure yet. I'm sure we're not going to be on the same page with what we want there. But another guy who opted out or went to the portal was CJ Clark, who committed to Miami. But overall, Peyton Wilson, tackling machine, 138 tackles this year. You have some other guys, Devin Boykin, Brandon Cleveland, just some names. Red Hibbler is going to be rushing Avery Johnson pretty heavily. But overall, I guess my first question is going to be, what is the loss of Peyton Wilson if he does not play in this game? How does that affect the overall portion of this defense?
Dude, I can't tell you how highly I think of Peyton Wilson enough, right? I have been beating that drum that he is the best defensive player in the country. The fact that he didn't win all of the awards, I forgot the Nagurski, they absolutely criminal that they gave it to the Notre Dame kid. Like, just, you can't compare it. The guy wasn't even nominated for the Maxwell Award for the best DB, and they gave him the best overall player. Like, he should have won every award. And I've said this all year, and a bit exaggerating, but he should have been considered in the Heisman, because you're talking about outstanding players. he is the top 10 player in the country. There's no doubt in my mind that if NC State had done a good enough job pushing him out there, that more people would have paid attention to him. That's just not something we're very good at as a university. So, I mean, Peyton's unbelievable. He's the best linebacker I've ever seen him play. And, you know, Luke Kuechly's up there, and some of these other guys who played in the ACC have been phenomenal. Peyton Wilson's the best. He's unbelievable. You can't replace Peyton Wilson, and I don't expect him to play. Actually, I expect him to suit up but not play, because he's kind of guy. He's one of those guys that he's a football guy. He and Dave are super tight. He knows how much 10 wins means for Dave Doeren, and so he'll want to play. And I know he wants to play, but I know his family and agent and those people don't want him to play. And I think most State fans will agree that he has sacrificed himself so much. He's been hurt so often. For the fact that he made it 2 years in a row without getting, seriously hurt, the risk is way too high for him going into the draft to play this game to get hurt. So I completely understand if he sits out. That said, I would feel a lot better if he was playing, because, Avery Johnson can move, and that concerns me with our defense, because Peyton has been our best spy, and Peyton will chase down an Avery Johnson. Peyton's clocked at 22 miles an hour running for a guy that's 6'5", 250. He's a freak. He's unbelievable. And you can't, and I've said this on our pod, it's like you can't replace him with one guy. There's not like a guy's going to step in and become Peyton Wilson, right? So you better hope Jalen Scott steps up. You better hope Cam Fordham, who he's got all the makings to be similar to Peyton Wilson, right? He's very similar kind of game, kind of the way he plays. But again, you just can't replace him. So it's going to be a group effort to try to maintain that. But our defense has done a fantastic job all year, right? We lost CJ Clark, like you said, who has been our nose all year. 4-star kid. Kind of surprised that he decided to go in the portal, but I just think he wanted, more PT and to get some money. I don't blame him. The defensive line has just been solid across the board, and he's really the only one who's going to be a loss. Brandon Cleveland has filled in and rotated with CJ all year and actually outperformed him in most cases. So he's the kind of guy that, this is going to be his chance to step up. And our defense is so good because the defensive line is disruptive in maintaining those gaps, right? They're letting the linebackers, we're going to run a 3-4. They're going to let those linebackers 3-4-3-3-5, and they're going to let those linebackers move in space, right? And that's because our defensive line is strong. Davin Van is fantastic, number one. He wears our captain's jersey. He's disruptive. You mentioned Red Hibbler, who's been playing in rotations, and he's unbelievable in the pass rush. Like, he's just so fast with his spin. I almost guarantee that he gets a sack of some kind in this game. And he'll get more run. Noah Potter been playing really well. Ohio State transfer. The defensive line has just been really solid. It's one of those positions that we've developed really well over the years. We got Charlie Wiles from Virginia Tech, and Virginia Tech in their heyday was what they're known for, right? Good defense, solid up front, and I think he's done a hell of a job identifying guys and then just keeping them going. We're going to rotate a bunch of dudes in, and they're all going to need to contribute in order to make up for Peyton Wilson potentially not playing.
So just thinking about the 3 or 4 losses that you had this season, what were the offenses and how were they successful against this defense? What was there a prototype offense that, or certain situations that a team can take advantage of this defense?
I see Chef down there tapping his thumbs like he's got something to say.
No, I'm just taking notes, and then whatever you're going to say.
He's sending it out.
Oh, Notre Dame. I might be on the island here, but we win the Notre Dame game if that doesn't get a 2-hour delay. They came in, we were going toe to toe with them. Stadium's just absolutely packed. It's electric. The environment's unbelievable. Just throwing punches at each other. Go in a 2-hour thunderstorm delay, come out and Notre Dame scores 80 yards first play. Like, our guys were not out of the locker room yet. That there was nobody left in the stadium, deflated. And we just chased them the rest of the game. I don't think they did anything phenomenal. They gave to that big Audric Estime. I thought he was really phenomenal. But he's the only one that's been able to run on us all year. Louisville beat us. That was more our ineptitude. I don't think their offense did anything special. They're a very explosive offense all year. They've been able to rip off big plays with Thrash and Jawar Jordan at running back. It's just how they scored all year. And they couldn't do anything against us. They averaged like 0.8 yards per play, and we still lost that game, which tells you how bad our offense was at that point in the season. And again with Duke, right? Duke beat us 3 plays. It's unbelievable. They had 3 plays that got them 220 yards and 3 touchdowns. It still blows my mind. And again, it was giving up 2 long runs to Duke that really did it. And the Marshall game, I think, was a bit of an anomaly. We won that, but they're the team. Marshall, of all teams, is the one that scored the most points against us. MJ threw a pick 6. We gave them 3 interceptions in really plus territory. So I don't think it was anything they were doing. They were running some unique stuff, which I thought was pretty good. They were running a little bit of Wake Forest mesh concepts and some things that they weren't showing early in the year. They're the only offense that actually had any real sustained success against us, as hard as that is to believe. I think our defense just has been so good at being disruptive. So if you're going to be successful against us, it's going to be in the middle, like across the middle, and your quarterback's going to have to make good decisions because they're going to put him under stress. Tony Gibson has been phenomenal the last few years at taking away, and this is so cliche, right? Everybody says, I want to take away what you do well, but he does it, right? He has been doing it. He's been making throwing teams run and running teams throw and being disruptive about it, right? And that's what our defense has been. It's been a lot of fun to watch. Our corners have been so good. Aiden White and Shaheem Battle, who are both pro prospects, still waiting on what they're going to do this year. And with this bowl game, we haven't heard now, so I assume they're going to play, or maybe they'll announce after the bowl game or whatnot. But both of them are pro guys and have given us so much freedom to be creative with the mix-ups and bring pressure from different places, because you can count on them to, lock down most wide receivers, and they have all year. It's been very few, sustained success from any team just trying to throw it to the outside on those 2 guys, it's wild to me because, again, it's just not something we've historically been really good at. But these guys they've been really solid. It's Tony Gibson's defense is fun to watch because it's so disruptive. They bring pressure from so many different places and what they're going to try to do. If you guys can't run on us, and I don't know what what kind of run game you're going to bring to the table, but if you can't run on State, then it's going to be a long day.
Well, I don't like hearing that. I don't like that at all. I want to ask this question before we get into our listener questions. You're tapped in. You're an NC State guy. Is the team fired up for this game? Because there's expectations of where we wanted to be, and at the beginning of the season, and all this noise. Are they fired up for the Pop-Tart Bowl?
It's a good question, right? With State, and I just said it to my community earlier today that they're talking about who's going to play, who's not. It's like, my real concern is what are we going to do in a bowl game? Because historically, under Dave Doeren, we have not been fired up for these games, and I don't know if it's bowl games are so much matchup related, and then who's going to play and who's not going to play, and we rolled out Ben Finley last year, and year before UCLA didn't show up on us, and I don't really know what to expect. I do know that this team, they finished so strong, they want to keep it going, and I do know that they know it's important for Dave Doeren to win 10 games. Right. It sounds silly, but it's not a feat that NC State as a program has done very often. I mean, it's been done once before in program history, which is crazy. And it took Phillip Rivers to do it. So I think they kind of know that that's an important benchmark for them. So not necessarily about the Pop-Tarts Bowl or hey, we could have been an AC title had we just not thrown a dumbass interception against Louisville in that game. So there's a lot of that, but I think they're going to rally. I think they're going to be pretty fired up for this game. And I think there's a lot of respect for K-State's program because, Dave is very familiar with you guys in the area and the programs. And I feel pretty good about at least them being prepared for this game as opposed to some of the other bowl games that we've had in the past where I wasn't sure what to think.
All right. Well, let's get into these listener questions brought to you by the Wild Berry Flavor Pop-Tart. NC State, K-State. We haven't played each other ever. That's cool. So give me some general knowledge of NC State. I know it's in Raleigh. Is that how you say it? Raleigh? Capital?
Yep.
Capital
City, North Carolina.
Let's go.
Correct. 2 hours from the beach, 2 hours from the mountains. Great location. What do you want to know about Raleigh? Raleigh is growing. It's a fantastic downtown scene now. So it's quite different than when I was in school. It is a lot of bricks. We make our own bricks. We make our own toilet paper. We make our own ice cream. Right. So there's a lot of good things going on there.
Fan of bricks.
Yeah, bricks everywhere, man. If you ever come to NC State, that's what they always just say is just bricks everywhere. Yeah. Textile school. We have a nuclear reactor on campus.
Yeah.
So do we.
Yeah, there you go.
We're going nuclear.
Yeah. I'm trying to think what else we got going. We're the first library in the United States to have automated librarian system. So you put your little book order in, the big machine goes around and takes your books. It's a ginormous.
Not Dewey
library.
Decibel anymore.
No. The little computer and the robot does it for you. Yeah. Philip Rivers, John Tesh, we've had General Hugh Shelton, NC State alumni. Trying to think. Zach Galifianakis, NC State alumni.
Let's
go.
graduated.
Yeah. I can name a lot. Greatest basketball player to ever live, David Thompson. Greatest football player in the ACC history, Philip Rivers. Yeah. I mean,
so give me
Torrey Holt. Should be a Hall of Famer.
Give me some traditions. Oh, it's worst fingers in the history of humanity, by the way.
Oh,
Torrey
it's
Holt.
unbelievable. Mine is getting up there like his, but his is way worse. Yeah.
No, that's the grossest thing I've ever seen in my life. He needs to just take that thing off. It's so bad.
That's great.
Give me some NC State traditions, though. What's the game day atmosphere like? What's the one thing if I were to go to Raleigh and go to a Wolfpack game? What am I looking at?
An insane tailgate scene. It's legit. It is one of the best in the area. I think most people will acknowledge that, even if they're not State fans. There'll be 60,000 people plus probably another 20 that don't actually go into the games, and it's pigs smoking everywhere and just a classic tailgate environment. We have just a bit of everything. And it's an awesome game environment. You'll be welcomed everywhere. State fans have been historically hospitable to most other teams, right? There's a few that are not so friendly around, but it's a great environment, man. It's I'll keep it PC, but yeah, it's a good environment. Yeah.
Lots of parallels. Again, I'm hearing are parallels there. So bringing it to the Pop-Tarts, the topic, the bowl sponsor, which Pop-Tarts flavor best describes this year's NC State football team?
I hadn't thought about that one. Best Pop-Tart flavor. I mean, my default answer is going to be like the frosted strawberry, right? Because we got a ginger quarterback.
Whoa!
That's going to tie that together, right? Turned out pretty sweet, a little crusty on the outside at first. That's probably be my answer. Yeah,
that's a great answer. Jesus, that's a great answer.
Oh, that was good. A great question, and you can already give us one of the people on this, but who is on your Mount Rushmore for NC State football?
Oh, Philip Rivers. Obviously, I've said his name about 100 times already in this podcast. Torrey Holt, and how many people? 4?
Yeah, how many people are on Mount Rushmore? I've never.
Four.
Four, I believe. Yeah. Four. Yeah. That is it's like I'm not old enough for people to go back. People will say, "Well, John Richter or Earl, all these other guys." I'm going to go with the guys that I know, and Phillip Rivers, Torrey Holt, Mario Williams.
Oh yes.
And honestly, I put Peyton Wilson up there, and maybe that's recency bias, but 2 offense, 2 defense. I mean, I could probably go a couple different directions, but I feel pretty good with that combo there.
Man, not the NFL's like best backup quarterback, Jacoby Brissett. Man,
I love Jacoby, man. Jacoby's my guy. I love Jacoby, but I'm not putting him on my Mount Rushmore. No,
wasn't Mario Williams like the #1 pick?
Oh yeah,
first ever #1 pick from the ACC
for Buffalo, right?
No, for Houston.
Houston Texans.
Yep.
He was a dog,
first
man.
ever. Yep.
He was I don't remember what year he came out. What was that, like 2005? Maybe
something around there. Maybe 2003, somewhere in there.
I mean, yeah, it might have been before that, because I remember that was like the first year that I watched the combine, and that dude was just out there. I mean, he's like 6'7", 280 pounds. I mean, he's running like a deer. That was golly, boy. He put it on the map for me.
He's got a giant boat, and I don't know how big it is, but I'm going to say 40 or 60 foot boat.
Oh, I thought it was like a yacht.
No, it's like a racing boat. It's a huge racing boat. It's called the Big Bad Wolf, and it's got a giant wolf painted across the side. It is awesome. You should just Google it right now while you're thinking. It is badass, and they bring it around the arena and the stadium every once in a while. It's sick. Yeah, it's sick.
Okay.
Mario Williams boat. Just Google it.
Now I want to inverse this a little bit. When you think of K-State, what's the first player you think of when you think of Kansas State?
Ooh, good one. Darren Sproles, right?
Ooh.
And wasn't Sproles one of y'all's? Yep.
Oh yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, he was a nightmare, man. He was crazy to watch. There's been a few others, and they're slipping my mind. And I've paid attention to K-State for a while there, but Sproles will be the one guy that stands out to me. Will Howard, because we wanted him in the portal. But
Lincoln Riley threw him that bag today, though.
Yeah. I heard that. I heard we got priced out of it real quick. So that's not surprising. Sproles we want to answer, but I know I'm forgetting a couple of people that I've remember watching in the past.
For sure.
Who's the quarterback you had was a couple of years ago? Skylar
Thompson. Miami Dolphin backing up 2-0.
He was wild to watch, man. He did some crazy stuff.
And you've got Tyler Lockett in Seattle, who's got Russell, who had Russell Wilson, former NC State Wolfpack member.
I'll tell you a story about that one off air.
I'll look forward to that.
I like that.
So next question. Obviously, a lot of the conversation leading into bowl season was Florida State getting snubbed. And that's, of course, kicked off all of the rumor mill with realignment yet again. And the ACC seems like, with some of the rumors with Florida State and some of the comments even by their athletic director and president during the offseason, it seems like maybe the ACC's stability could be called into question. What do you think the next phase of realignment will look like? Because we've seen all of it, from the spectrum of your conference is about to get killed off to, okay, you're now one of 4 conferences that are left. And the Big 12's in a place of relative stability now. So I'm just curious, from the ACC insider's perspective, what that looks like for you.
I need to go back to the question and modify my answer. I want to add a 5th one to my Mount Rushmore. Ike Ekwonu. Ickey's been unbelievable. He was another one of our, I don't think he was first draft pick, but he was 3rd or somewhere up high, and All-American, consensus All-American. He was everything. He was fantastic for a bunch of years. I don't know why that randomly popped in my head, but yeah, I want to add Ickey to my list. I want 5 guys on my Mount Rushmore. FSU got boned, man. It's so frustrating as a state fan or as an ACC fan to see that happen. Am I surprised? No. And I don't think anybody is. I don't think the Big 12 should be surprised either, because if, situation was reversed, it would probably, Y'all get left out for Alabama. And it's disheartening that a team can go 13-0, win their conference, Power 5 conference, and get left out because of nonsense reasons. Hurts even more that our athletic director was the one on the head of that committee, right? It's, real kick in the junk there. And it feels really, I don't think anything's going to happen to the ACC, to be honest. I think the media rights thing is too binding. I think it's too much of an obstacle for teams to get out at this point. I think they'll just suck it up and roll. But it sucks. It sucks to think about. It sucks to think about that our previous commissioner, who was a Carolina grad, so I would expect this from him, was one of the ones that would put together the 14 playoff for 5 power conferences. John Swafford, thank you very much. Very disappointing. But the leadership in the conference has been disappointing, to say the least, for a while now, right? The same leadership that decided to flip and expand and add Stanford, Cal, and SMU, right? Makes no sense. Makes no sense to me. There's better programs, there's better schools, there's better things out there. I'd have very little faith in the actual leadership that we have in place now, leading the conference into the next generation. So I don't think the conference is going to blow up, but I also don't think the conference is going to grow. I don't think the conference is going to get better. I don't think the conference is going to thrive. We're in a weird place of limbo, and it's disappointing. I grew up here. I grew up in Tobacco Road. I grew up watching these games, and now they're telling us these games don't mean anything when Florida State just gets left because the quarterback got hurt. When JJ McCarthy had worse stats than the Florida State quarterback. He's their starter for Michigan, and they played Iowa, and offense looked like garbage. But they get the pass, right? Why? I don't know. Why? It's because the media and the TV networks and everybody else who's running all this nonsense is making these decisions. And nothing, and I hope to be proven wrong, but nothing from ACC leadership has shown me that I should have faith in that they're going to lead us to the next generation. So at some point, if somebody finds a way out, and the first crack starts to happen, and I would expect that if it was going to happen, this Florida State getting snubbed would be part of it. But I don't know where that leads, right? I don't know where that goes. And if they were forward thinking enough, and I put this proposal out years ago about this point when they were talking about this, they should have joined with the Pac-12 back then and just made coastal conferences. You have to be the first mega conference, play on your coast, meet in the middle, winners play, whatever, just something to, that they were struggling with their TV deal and their network, and they needed a change, and we needed a big enough change to make our deal to renegotiate it because our dumbass athletic commissioner put a 20-year deal on the table, not accounting for growth and anything else. So yeah, I don't know what's going to happen. I just have very little faith in the current leadership.
Hey, who knows? This football matchup in 3 years could be a conference matchup. We never know.
Right?
You could be seeing our tailgating in Manhattan very soon.
All for
it. Talking about the ACC, most importantly, there's 4 ACC schools in North Carolina, and we all know obviously about your rivalry with UNC, but of course Duke, Wake Forest. I mean, out of those, just give us some insight. Maybe who do you consider your biggest rival, or maybe just describe each school for us, just to understand maybe the differences between them coming from you as an NC State guy.
Well, Carolina's the biggest rival, right? They're very analogous to KU, where they're uppity basketball school that decided they think they're good at other sports, and tries to thump their chest about it, but really all they care about is basketball season, right? I mean, yeah,
Ding ding
I think
ding.
I mean, it's the perfect analogy because it's true, and right, they call them stereotypes, but they're stereotypes for a reason, right? Wake Forest is probably number 2 on my hate list, and it's more just because they're annoying. Because we had trouble with them, and you're like, how do you have trouble with this tiny school? With just it's just, and they've derailed us so many times from getting to where we want to be on the football field. Duke, I don't really think much of Duke. They only care during basketball season. Even their football program was actually half decent the last couple of years. Just nobody ever goes. Nobody ever talks about it. It's a basketball school. And, that will be the priority order. Unfortunately, we have Clemson, right south of us, and Tennessee on the other border of us. And I always stated that if NC State or North Carolina only had one school in the state, one Power 5 school in the state, that program would be unbelievable, or that school would be unbelievable at so many things. Like Nebraska, right? They're the only school in that state that has any sort of fan base. Like they can draw 100,000 fans for a volleyball game, right? That would be North Carolina if there wasn't so many dang schools out here. Iowa State is your Wake Forest, right? They're just annoying, right? Like, why are they here?
Fuck Iowa State.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's how I feel about Wake Forest. Like, I don't want to give them any respect or any credibility, but that's exactly the analogy there. But
okay, yeah. Let's get to my boy Will the Thrill, and I'm interested in this because I'm a mascot guy, huge mascot guy. Where do you get the team name Wolfpack? Are there wolves in North Carolina? Get me out of that state. And then I want to also know, I love female mascots. And I know you got one of the, I'm pretty sure it's at North Carolina State is the female mascot. Mm-hmm. I'm not a furry, but I'm saying, like, I love that you guys have a female
Chef,
mascot.
you need to go to horny jail, dude.
It came out wrong.
I love it. Yes, we have a female mascot, Mr. and Mrs. Wolf. Good question. I don't actually know the origin of the mascot name. I probably should know that, but I don't. I know we have some red wolves, but it's not a big wolf population. There are some, I guess, smaller timber wolves out in the east. We do have the largest population of black bears in the U.S. You would never guess that. I'm surprised we're not the Bears, but whatever. We have wolves and sheep apparently with Carolina, so I'm not sure. There's no Rams in the state, so I don't know where that came from. And Wake Forest, the Demon Deacons, because they're a Baptist school, so at least that one makes sense. But yeah, that's a good question. I don't actually know the answer to that. Not a lot of wolves around here.
Yeah. Well, that does it for our listener questions. We're going to move to our score prediction and plug and then get out of here. What would you say are the keys to victory for NC State in this matchup? And then hit us with your score prediction.
Yeah, contain Avery Johnson. Don't let him run all over us. Make him uncomfortable. I know he's had experience. He's played a bunch of games. Make him uncomfortable. Make him make tough throws. Keep him moving. But keep him contained. I think that's our key to victory. At least defensively. Offensively is just give the ball to KC and let him go and find a way. I just got a feeling they'll grind it out. I don't know, man. Like I said, I'm a fan of Chris Kleinman and Colin Klein, what he was doing. I don't know who's your coordinator now, your offensive coordinator now. I think Klein left, right? Am I correct? Yeah.
Connor Riley is.
It's up in the air. It's up in
now.
the air.
Yeah, I mean, I assume they'll still run the same stuff, right? I assume there's not going to be too much changing. We've always had a unique run game and ability to generate yards. So I think it's going to be a real good matchup, man. I don't know what to expect from y'all defensively, to be honest. So that's kind of the question mark there.
Well, what I've learned is that we got this 3-3-5 from you guys. I mean, I learned that in a press conference that Kleiman and Klanderman, they were down there visiting their buddy Dave Doeren, and they got the start from the 3-3-5 from North Carolina State. It's basically the same defense. So I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I'm almost certain we'll be more aggressive. We'll blitz White more than you guys will from that defense. It's just Gibson's MO, sometimes too much. But I think he's kind of figured out the sweet spot of that lately. Yeah, it's a good matchup, man. I think both these programs are very similar, and I think both these programs this year are very similar. Quarterbacks all over the place, solid, typically solid defensively. Not going to blow you away offensively, but good enough to really put up some points if they get rolling. Right? There's so many parallels. It should be actually a pretty good game, underrated game, I think.
Couldn't agree more. Who wants to hit us with the score prediction first? Chef, I'm going to go with you.
I'll go first. I got it 24-20 Cats. I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. I think, their offense, North Carolina State's offense is just, it's one guy. It's one guy. We got to stop that one guy. He's good as hell, but we got to stop the one guy.
Yeah, you're not stopping him.
I don't
try.
know.
You're not.
Well, we're gonna try. If he's anything like Iowa State's Ayasaba, we're gonna be here for a while.
Fucked.
Basically fucked. But I think it's gonna be 24-20 Cats. Avery in the end zone 3 times. Let's go.
Wow. I'm gonna go 38-35 NC State. This is gonna be a game that admittingly, it's an exciting game because of it's kind of a glimpse of the future for both schools. If you think about guys that have been lost to the transfer portal, opt-outs, just those types of situations, you're going to see a lot of young guys. I know from the K-State side, especially, everybody's talking about Avery Johnson, but it's going to be seeing some of these wide receivers who are younger, our freshman tight end. And on the defensive side, we're going to have some areas where we have guys that have not been put into a situation to play as many snaps as they have this season. They're going to be playing it in this game. That being said, I mean, the talent that we've seen from some of these, or just a little glimpses of talent from some of these younger guys, this is going to be a good way to show out. I am going to take the experience at quarterback to be the edge in this game. As much as we think, and I truly believe Avery Johnson is going to be an incredible quarterback for K-State. This is his first start of his career. And you're playing against a top 20 team, no matter what.
Second start. It's his second start.
First is quarterback.
Whatever. His first start at quarterback anyway. A lot of people may not remember this is a top 25 matchup. There's only a handful of bowl games this season that have 2 top 25 teams. So I'm going to put NC State to have the edge in this game. It's going to be close throughout. I think Brennan Armstrong is actually going to be the one that just with the experience takes that team and gets them a victory in the Pop-Tart Bowl.
I'm going 35-28 Wolfpack, as much as I hate doing that, but I'm going to go with K-State's track record in bowls has never been great. So, yeah, I don't like
ours hasn't been either. Our track record in bowl is bad too. So,
but
again,
you're playing for Dave
parallel.
Doeren to get his 10th win. So I feel like they've got a little bit more to play for in this one. I'm going with the Wolfpack, but Evan, we appreciated having you on. I loved your insight. Loved you telling us about everything NC State, all things NC State. But go ahead and give us, plug whatever you want to. Where can the people find you? And then we'll get out of here.
Hold on. Avery Johnson had another start. It wasn't at quarterback. What did he?
Yes.
What did I miss?
Against TCU. So against TCU, we started Will Howard at quarterback and Avery Johnson as a wide receiver for one play. So
it was a jet sweep to Avery Johnson.
Okay.
Beautiful.
It was incredible.
I thought it was a safety turn quarterback situation.
And this was due to the fact that the week before Avery stepped in for Will Howard at Texas Tech and scored 5 touchdowns, and everybody wanted Avery to start the TCU game,
which he did.
Which he did, but everybody wanted him to start at quarterback, so it was almost the coaching staff putting middle fingers up to everybody. We're going to start both players on the first play of the game.
It worked.
Right. I like that. That's a good middle finger to everybody. But y'all can find us at Red White Podcast on Twitter is where most of our stuff rolls through. Red White Network is our website, and that's where we live mostly. I appreciate y'all having me on. A lot of fun. I got to ask the question, and I'm going to ask hopefully at some point later. What is Cocaine Willie? It's a great name, but why? Like, I want to know where it came from. Is that the name of the Wildcat?
It's this alternate logo, like old school Willie logo. We call it Cocaine Willie because he looks like he just snorted a few lines of coke at a club in the 70s. Yeah, but he Cocaine Willie used to be painted at our midfield for a long time back when he sucked at football. So yeah, very popular logo among our fan base.
That's fantastic. Great name. We got Fireball Matt, Cocaine Willie, and the Chef. Y'all are phenomenal. This is great.
We love it. Well, Evan, appreciate having you on again. For all of us here at Cocaine Willie, thank you for listening to the show on your feed or watching us on YouTube. Do us a favor if you're listening on Apple or Spotify podcast, leave us a 5-star rating and follow the show. And if you're watching on YouTube, give us a like on the video and subscribe to the channel. If you're an NC State fan, if you're a K-State fan, if you just are curious about a matchup between two teams that never played each other in a bowl sponsored by Pop-Tarts, you're going to love this episode. But follow the show on Twitter, Instagram, or TikTok at Cocaine Willie, or follow us. I'm at Bob Trollsby. Fireball Matt's at Matt Marchesini, and Chef is at Chef Andre Napier. Chef,
Cocaine's a hell of a drug, baby.
we are all coke and no joke. Wildcat country.
Let's fucking ride, baby.
Let's ride.